of the reasons why we got involved with this project is because I was very concerned about where race was going in this country. It was almost reminiscent of 1968 with Black Lives Matter movement, with issues with politicians being very divisive. And the other thing, too, is that there seemed to be something bubbling beneath the surface in terms of how people expressed how they felt about, Barack Obama. The other issue was that I was thinking in terms of, I know what black people and people of color feel about race, but I've never really gotten a definitive answer from white folks in terms of how they feel about race. And I thought it was time to ask that question, because you can't have a conversation about race without people listening and people talking and people talking and people listening. And it's been my experience that I found it rather difficult to have those conversations with white folks. And so the question, what does it mean to be white in America, became the premise for the book, the actually asking the question, what does it mean to be white in America? I really didn't have a clear idea on how the book would evolve. I was talking to Sean Frederick Forbes, who's on the board of directors of our organization, whose work I've published, and as a person I greatly admire. He is the creative writing director at UConn and also teaches literature. And I went to him and I said, what do you think? And we kind of said, yeah, we need to do something. And then it started with getting in contact with an anti-racist activist, and we went through a vetting process, and we liked what Debbie Irving did with her book and the good works that she did. And we also, as the book was progressing, we added things to it. We added the idea of the preface as the book was developing. We added the idea of having the afterword, which eventually Tara Betts did, which she did an extremely good job, and we wanted somebody black to do the afterword because we wanted to have that assessment, that kind of wrap-up. Along the way, we had problems with people not liking us asking the question. Some people pretty much ignored us. We went to some really top-notch, top-flight people in the literary and scholarly worlds who just kind of ignored us. And I guess that was an inkling of what was to come in terms of how people would respond to the question, what does it mean to be white in America? We've had people tell us that, if it had not been for the fact that it was two black editors doing this, they wouldn't participate in it. They felt more comfortable. And in a way, the purpose of the book was to provide a platform, a safe haven for our contributors to do it. I think that in terms of social justice, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I think that, we've spent the last 40 years, not really, or 50 years, not talking about race. Once the Civil Rights Acts it came into being in the 60s, once the Southern strategy was set upon us, which is why we're seeing repercussions in our political world right now of it falling apart. I think that there was a period of time where people really kind of convinced themselves that race doesn't matter. But it does. It's always been there. It's always been in the underbelly. And I think that I'm hoping that the book itself will open up doors and ideas to people about just talking, instead of dancing around the issue, answering the question about what does it mean to be white in America, what does it mean to be black in America, what does it mean to be Muslim in America. Those questions, we need to start listening to each other and having conversations and realizing that that there's no room for full agreement. Everyone is going to have their own opinion and their own ideas and own issues on how they deal with race. Some of it is corrective, some of it is ingrained, but I think the real outcome of having these conversations is being able to communicate with people. This is how I feel. Okay, I respect how you feel. How do we move forward? All right, you can't have a moving forward unless people are willing to to accept that not everyone's going to agree with everything that is said. And I think that's really the outcome that I'm looking for this particular project. The selection process was very interesting. People had a hard time answering the question. Some people submitted works that they wrote long ago that they can kind of like slip underneath the door, and that didn't quite work. Some people got upset about that because those narratives that they wrote weren't really addressing the question, what does it mean to be white in America? And as you read the book, you can see that the struggle that a lot of the contributors had in writing these pieces. It's not an easy thing. They say, I thought I could sit down and dash this off, and then as I got into it, I realized that it's very difficult to write about, which is really a good exercise. And we chose personal narratives as opposed to academic essays, scholarly essays of that nature, is because we wanted to get stories from people, sharing their personal stories. And then as you go through the book, you're not going to necessarily agree with everything that's written in the book or different stories, but it gives you a perspective, it gives you a shading, it gives you an idea of what people are thinking and why. And at the end of each of the essays, some of the contributors have more questions. They're like, well, I don't know if I have an answer, but this is how I feel, or this is what I see, what do I do next? And that opens up the doors for, to communicate with people and converse with people. This book is not just about white people. This book is about race. And what I'm hoping is that when black people read this book, it will give them a better sense of what the other side is thinking. Now, as a black person in America, we're groomed from birth to understand white people better than white people can understand themselves. That's part of our survival. It's our survival mode. I think one of the problems that black folks have is that when black people try to share how they feel, they have white people telling them, oh no, you can't possibly feel that. Oh no, that's not right for you to feel that. There is no more racism, and I'm not from a slave owner, and I don't know what you're talking about, and we're colorblind. And I think that white people have to come into the conversation with a clear head, listening, no matter how painful that might be, and understand that they cannot be in control of how black people should feel. I think when black people read this book, I think they won't be surprised so much by the stories. I think they'll be surprised by the candor in the stories themselves. It's almost like I thought they were thinking that, now I have proof. I think one of the things that I like about this book is that it really covers a wide range of different types of white people. It's the chef, it's the rabbi, it's the scholar, it's the waitress, it's people who come from different class backgrounds, from poor to middle class or upper middle class backgrounds, different parts of the country. I think one of the things I was kind of nervous about is that I didn't want it to be like a East Coast, West Coast book. I didn't want it to be, it's a book a bunch of liberal Californians and liberal New Yorkers, put together in this book. It really, covers people from different age groups, people who are old enough to have lived through Jim Crow and segregation, speaking candidly about how they felt as children during that era, to millennials that are talking about race today and how it affects them. People who talk about not only just class issues, but sex issues. We have lesbian, LGBT people in the book who talk about the duality of sexism and racism. We have people talking about religious issues. A lot of Jews talking about racism as it pertains to being a Jew, but also being white, and what does that mean, and what it shouldn't mean, or what it must mean, or exploring those kind of thoughts and ideas. I like the book. I think that I didn't realize that the book was so overwhelming because we liked a lot of the pieces. We did 82. There's 82 contributors in the book, but I like the different nuances. I like it that it's not perfect. We tried to edit with great care to maintain people's voices. We tried to make it so that scholars or teachers or professors can use the book in the classroom, to open up conversations, to get groups to be involved with reading the book and having conversations about how they feel about the book, to open up dialogue. My hat's off to all the contributors because they put themselves on the line to do this book. They publicized how they feel in a very, very public way. I'm grateful that they feel safe with Two Leaf Press. I'm grateful that they feel safe with the work that, Sean and I did on this book. And I'm just hoping that, something will come of it. Every little bit helps.